Hello, today we look at systems of equations with elimination challenge. Now, the one major difference between the challenge and the previous one, which was just the systems of equations with elimination, is that before you add or subtract the equations together, first you need to multiply one of the equations so that you have something to work with. Now, if we look at these two equations right here, we can see that we have no terms that are common terms that are a lot similar terms that can actually cancel each other out. So we need to make something that will cancel each other out. Now, a -4 and a -5 may not be immediately useful because we would need to multiply both of them. One is not a factor of the other. However, we do note that 3 is a factor of 6. Now, if we divide, is a factor of 18. If we divide 18 by 3, we get 6. So therefore, what we're going to do first is we're going to multiply this entire equation here by 6 before we begin. Okay, so this is similar to the distribution that you've worked with before. What we do here is we distribute that 6 into the equation 3 times. We also have to distribute it into the onto the right-hand side of the equation. So let's do that. So 6 times 3x is, of course, 18x. 6 times -4y is -24y. And 6 times 8, of course, is 48. There we go. Now let's get our other equation in here lined up underneath it so that we can start working with them together. Okay. Perfect. Now, what you do notice is that both of these terms are both positive. 18x and 18x are both positive. So what that's going to tell us is that we need to subtract this equation, and we're going to subtract the equations from one another rather than adding them together. So 18x minus 18x, of course, is 0. So they cancel out nicely. -24y minus 5y is -19y. Of course, watch out for those negatives. A negative minus a negative is like adding rather than subtracting. So finally, 48 minus 10 is 38. And our next step is going to be dividing by the coefficient. If we divide by -19 on both sides of the equal sign, we will, of course, get y equals -2. So there's a start. We have y equals -2, and now we do exactly the same thing that we did before with solving these equations. We choose one of these equations and we plug in that -2 into the equation. Now, I kind of like a smaller equation rather than a bigger one. The 18 is not pretty, so we're actually going to go with this first equation right here. We're going to go with 3x. X, remember, is what we're looking to solve. Minus 4y. Now y is -2, so we're going to plug in that -2. And that's equal to 8. And let's solve that out. Okay, so that gives us 3x. -4 times -2 is +8. So 3x plus 8 equals 8. And you can see where we're going with this. We subtract 8 from both sides, we're going to get 0. And that gives us 3x equals 0. And therefore, x is equal to 0. So, in recap right there, what you're seeing here is we choose one of the equations. We make a choice based on the factors, the common factors. So if we've got a factor right here, we multiply by the other factor that we're missing. So that gives us that gives us the same term to work with. And then we can do our addition or subtraction to solve for a single variable, giving us an equation in one variable, which we can then solve for the other variable. So let's do two more real quick, and then we've got a chance to practice it for ourselves. So let's take a look at this here. Okay. There's times when you won't actually get what you're looking for, and you will need to multiply both equations. So see this one here? It's not pretty at all. We've got no common factors in here at all. So we're going to multiply each one by the other is the way we're going to work with this. So we're going to multiply this one times 2. We're going to go for the smaller terms. That's just easier to do. And we're going to multiply this one times 3. And the reason we're choosing 2 and 3 is because that's the coefficient of the variable in the other equation. See that? Okay, so distributing right here, we get 6x minus 60 is minus, sorry, I apologize, 6x minus 22y equals negative 2, and we get 6x minus 15y equals negative 9. Here we go. Let's subtract these. As you can see here, they're the same sign on them, so we need to subtract. That cancels this out. 22 minus 15. 22y minus 15 is the same as saying, sorry, 22 minus y minus negative 15 is the same as saying negative 22y plus 15. So that, of course, is negative 7y. And the same deal here, negative 2 minus negative 9 is, of course, positive 7. And finally, we're going to divide by the coefficient. We can see where this is going right away, though. This, of course, y is equal to negative 1. Perfect. So y equals negative 1. We're going to plug that negative 1 into one of these equations, and we'll take it from there. So we're going to choose this equation right here. Y equals negative 1. We're going to plug in our negative 1 right here. That gives us 2x. So that gives us 2x minus 5 times negative 1 equals negative 3. And therefore that's 2x plus 5 equals negative 3. Subtract 5 from both sides. Gives us 2x equals negative 8. And dividing by 2 on both sides gives us x equals negative 4. Great, I hope you're getting the hang of this now at this point. Notice that the big thing here at the beginning is that we do need to multiply both equations by something in order to get equations that we can actually work with. But otherwise we're doing exactly the same thing we did before. Okay, these equations here, when you get a longer equation like this equal to 0, we can actually rewrite this quite handily. It's just a matter of adding this term here, or subtracting if it was a positive, to both sides, and then you get it rather than the 0. And that's going to be a step that we'll do when we need to do it. We'll do it as we go along. We're going to kind of assume this is instead equal to, because we added on both sides, it's going to be equal to 67. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so we're going to begin by adding 67 to both sides and adding 19 to both sides in this equation. Okay, that's going to give us, so starting up here, it's going to give us negative 4y plus 11x equals 67. And it's going to give us And before we do this other one, we're going to multiply times 2 as well. We can see right away that it's going to do the same thing. It's going to give us 2y plus 5x equals 19. So we're going to just multiply the whole thing times 2 as we're doing that, and just make sure that we multiply this 19 and not this one. This is already cancelled out. So we're going to multiply this 19 right here. So we now have 4y plus 10x equals 19 times 2 is, of course, 38. And we got something we can work with now. There we go, that cancels out. This gives us 21x equals, this here is a 105. Okay, so we're looking at slightly bigger numbers to work with here. Dividing by 21. I'm not sure if you noticed right off the bat that this of course is actually quite a nice division, dividing by 21, because of course 20 goes into 100. 20 goes into 100 5 times, so that's where the extra 5 is coming from. So x, of course, is equal to 5. Okay, instead of choosing one of these equations up over here, we're actually going to choose one of these equations because they're just a little bit easier to work with. I like the ones with the positives too, so I'm going to choose this equation right here to work with, and I'm going to plug in 5 for x as I go along. So it's 4y plus 10 times x, let me write it in so that you can see it, 10 times 5 equals 38. So that's 4y plus 50 equals 38. Subtract 50 from both sides. Subtract 50 from both sides. Gives us 4y equals negative 12. And dividing by 4 gives us negative 3. So y is equal to negative 3. Okay. I hope all of that made some sense to you. Just remember, the key part of this is actually multiplying at least one of the equations by a factor that is going to help you cancel out one of the terms, and that's going to help you get an equation in one variable. So go ahead and try it out for yourself. Let me know if you have any questions.